We are here with the legendary strength coach, Dan John, legendary according to Men's Health Magazine. And we're going to talk about how to increase your pressing strength. I want to get Dan's 5 best steps, tips, piece of advice for getting you to improve. We're going to focus on the military press in particular. I don't know, Dan, maybe we can move to the bench press at some point. Then maybe we could give people a little sample program to follow. How's that sound?
Sounds good to me. All simple stuff. I've beat it to death, but yeah, it's strangely a popular question. First off, Patrick, we have not. This is we are being rude. How are you, Patrick?
Yes. Well, of course, I was going to get to that, Dan. I am well, enjoying my morning coffee. Weather is finally changing here in Wisconsin. Actually, I can't complain. We had perfect weather for Halloween. It's still very beautiful out. We still just beautiful colors. Just such a beautiful fall in Wisconsin. So things are good here, Dan. How about you? Is this still your final day of vacation?
Yeah. Well, I have to drive across the United States, but that small little thing. But yeah, Island Pond maybe is the best Halloween I've ever had in my life. I am. We had a big party Saturday night over at the American Legion, and everybody takes it so seriously. Everybody, all the adults dress up. It's a big event. They do charge $5 for an entire night of entertainment, so that's maybe a little pricey for some people here in the States. But by the way, that's $5 per person. Okay, I don't know if I made that clear.
Wow, and yikes.
That's kind of like taking your kids to like a Yankees game. That's just a lot of money. And then last night they do trunk or treat here in the downtown thriving metropolis. The hotel I'm staying at they set up their little back area for the kids. And
yep, love a good trunk or treat. Yep,
and it was great. My good friend Lonnie and his wife Pam came down and walked with us. I've talked about Lonnie a lot in my books. I dedicated one of my books to him. He's the football coach up at North Country Union High, and he's just a great man. And Pam's delightful, and we really we had an extraordinary evening. And
I'm very happy to hear that, Dan. But before we get to pressing, I have to ask: does Dan John have a favorite and least favorite Halloween candy? I'm sure everybody can't wait to know.
Well, here's the thing. If I do have a gift, a superpower, I don't. Now, other people who know might disagree with what I'm about to say. Okay, there's two things. If you ever see me eating a bean burrito, take my car keys. Bean burritos is my go-to alcohol food. Okay, that means
yeah. So we're lucky that nobody's handing those out at Halloween.
Yeah. So when it comes to candy, there's certain levels of intoxication that I'll eat it. Okay, it's like those damn Tostito chips, the scoopy ones. If you put them in front of me at a football game, the Super Bowl, the bowl will magically empty, and I will never know I ate any of it.
That's
but
right.
To answer your question, because you're a good and decent person, which reminds me of a candy I haven't had in years, and I did like it as a child. But I don't like the big ones, but I like the little individual Reese's peanut butter.
Oh, of course. It's even if you're not a candy guy, it's hard not to like.
Yeah, I don't know how you figured out that combination of taste, but that's pretty good. But what made me think there was a candy when I was young called Good and Plenty, and I don't know if they still make.
I remember those. Yeah, I don't know if they're still around or not.
Yeah, I like those. Least favorite candies. And now comes just the whole. I do. There is a maple syrup candy that I loathe, and I always bring it back to Utah for my friends I don't like. So the worst tasting. Oh, it's just bad. Other candies I can't stand. I could be here for.
Well, what's Dan John's stance on candy corn? Let's just get right to the heart of the matter.
Yeah, I haven't had one in a long time, but yeah, I used as a kid, I'd eat the white part off and then like the orange part off.
Yeah, eat the nutrition part, discard the rest. It's not healthy. I get it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I like them. Candies I don't like. Well, I don't mind coconut, with coconut, but I hate it in a candy bar, or I hate it in a candy. I just feel like the strings are trying to kill me when I bite into it.
I agree.
Anything that's a little too goo. Oh yeah, like when they make those old for grandma, those chocolates with the goo inside of it. Yeah, I'm not a big fan. Caramel doesn't usually get me going because it stays in my teeth until I brush and floss like 12 times. Don't like
Hmm.
that.
Hmm.
So basically, I mean,
Not even the occasional Werther's Original, Dan. You don't pop
Mhm.
one of those in every now and then.
Yeah,
No?
the thing is, and don't think I'm some kind of superhero. I don't. I just don't. But when I do, I'll eat anything, and then almost universally go, now why did I shove that in my pie? That's usually what happens.
Right.
But there's certain, I mean, and this is a good thing. It'd be nice to have Josh Hillis here because a lot of people, there are trigger foods,
Of
and
course.
when I go to a football game, I'm standing in line ordering a beer and a dog before I even know that I'm ordering a beer and a dog.
Right.
You know, I don't. I hate popcorn. It always the kernels get again. Listen to me in my teeth. But if someone makes pops popcorn and we're watching a game or a movie that's good,
Yeah.
next thing you know, I've eaten the whole
It's
thing
gone.
and I'm begging
Mhm.
for more.
I
Trigger.
want to, yeah, the trigger foods is a good point. We'll talk about pressing here in a minute. This is just too
Yeah.
fun to stop. But gentle listeners, what are your trigger foods? It sounds like Dan's is the bean burrito, so just keep those away from
Oh no, no,
Dan.
no. That's my I'm inebriated food.
Oh, okay, all right. But your
The
trigger
line.
food,
Yeah. Okay. So, oh God, Dan's drunk. Why do you know that? He's eating a bean burrito. Oh,
we went to Chipotle again. Yeah.
or what? Yeah, whatever. But trigger foods would be things like watch a movie, eat popcorn, watch a Super Bowl, eat nachos.
I see.
It's this, and it's you're doing this without a single higher functioning part of your brain
Right.
involved.
You've disassociated and you wake up in just a pool of crumbs. Right. Got it.
And,
Hmm.
and, te- and tears,
And
and tears,
tears, maybe
and tears.
blood. Who knows?
Yeah.
So,
If you don't mind, we can actually. There's a reason for this. The only sense that bypasses the mammalian part of your brain is smell. So there are certain smells that will trigger memories. I grew up next to See's Candy and Oro Wheat Bakery there in South San Francisco. So walking to the store, there was that. Everyone thinks chocolate has this. Oh, I love chocolate. The industrial chocolate smell is so sickly sweet. So when I smell like someone cooking with chocolate, I think of myself walking to the Brentwood Market. My brain comes right in there.
yeah,
When I smell fresh baked bread, I think of high school football practice when I always figured they must have opened a door at some time
sure.
because the smell of bread would just come across the field. Great home field advantage for JV games, by the way, because at 4 o'clock, they'd open the doors and the other team would all be like, and we'd be, used to it. If an ex-girlfriend of yours wore a certain perfume and you smell that perfume, your brain will go down a road before your human mind can say stop, 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 stop. So I think trigger foods, honestly, I think the combination of setting and smell
Sure.
makes you just start digging in.
Yeah, interesting. Very fun. Real fun little exploration there.
Well,
Now,
and as a parent, maybe it's a good time when you're raising your kids not to teach them about trigger foods. Ice cream and cake for your birthday. Or just go through the list. We're to the point now with kids that if they show up on time to school, they get a piece of candy. I mean,
yeah, it's preposterous, right? Yeah.
so I'm not, and again, this isn't me going, you kids and your fancy candies and
No, that's me. I'll do that for you, Dan. So let's now get to the topic at hand, which is how to increase your pressing strength. And Dan, if you wouldn't mind, I'd like to maybe break this into two ways of thinking about it. There's the quick fixes, and then there's the long fix. And we have to be careful when using the term quick fix because we're not talking about gimmicks or fads or anything like that. When I think of quick fixes for the press, I mean like things you can fix with your technique, either starting out or you can adjust that might make an immediate difference, but will, pretty quickly play into you being a better presser. And then long fixes would be things like how do we approach programming? how should I really approach practicing the press over an extended period of time so I could be the best presser that I can possibly be?
There's an interesting. So the answer to question 1 is the same as the answer to question 2.
Ooh, I like that.
Most people I work with who are weak in the press don't press enough. You, I'm a superb presser. It could be my DNA. It could be the fact that as a youth, I pressed 5 to 8 times a week. I often would do presses at school, come home and do incline presses at home. So, and this is the hard, there is, I mean, in the 3 power lifts, you can make a little mantra: squatter squat, pressers press, and then asterisk, deadlifters deadlift. Some people can deadlift 5 days a week, but most of us humans, actually not deadlifting probably helps your deadlift more than deadlifting for a lot of people. So let's just say this: the mistake most people make is not pressing enough. And I would say even it's not necessarily pressing enough. Like, on this trip, I'm doing 100 presses a day. Well, okay, so I'm pressing a lot, but okay, 100 presses a day, that'd be great. But if you did that 1 day a week, I'm not sure your press would really come up. But if you did 20 presses a day, 5 days a week, I think that would improve your press. I think you need to train that stroke in the same way you train the stroke of the squat. I noticed this in my career. I was a terrible squatter until Dick Notmeyer basically had me squat 5 days a week.
Okay. So tip number 1, it sounds like, is let's increase, because when we say press a lot, that could be translated into a couple things. It could mean press a lot of volume, which you could just have 1 day per week, or it could mean press more frequently, or it could mean press heavier, right? And so let's help sort that out for us, Dan. So frequency, intensity, volume. How should we try and put all that together for improving our press?
I would say if you're a poor presser, I would flip the order and normally coach people. Okay. This is going to sound weird, and I'm sure that, okay. This is, don't I have to make some kind of statement now to get more famous on internet?
Always. Yeah. Give us something.
You never need to press. Presses is worthless. Okay, was that good?
Give us something real clickbaity, Dan. I'll make a clip out of it.
Was that good? I mean, will people now pay more attention to this podcast?
2 perfects.
2 perfects. Okay. The other hand has my coffee. If you're a poor presser, I think frequency is the first thing you need to look at.
Okay, so press more often is what we're saying there.
If you're doing 1 press a week, I don't think, in my experience, pressing doesn't hold up less than, and the least I've done and kept it is 2 days a week. But you got to think more like 3 to 5 days a week. In fact, if you are a crappy presser, and there's no good reason for it. You don't have a bad shoulder, you don't have a tweak in your neck, you don't have what I'm saying?
There's totally, yeah.
You got a clean slate for your physical issues. Probably frequency would be the number 1 thing to go at. Press, and as I'm floating that, I'm thinking press and press varieties might help you in first too. It might be that you're a terrible bench presser because just the way you got really, really long, whatever this part of the upper arm is really long, and the angles aren't good. But you might be a great single hand overhead presser. So one of the things, if you do decide to, and I'm going to throw out what every American wants here, I want you to bench 3 times a week, but the other 2 days of the week has to be vertical and maybe single belled one of those days. There.
Okay, so increase press frequency and increase press variation. Those are the 2 things I'm getting so far.
And they're both. That's the same number 1. Okay. Number 2 on volume. I don't feel this is going to sound really unusual, but because this goes against many of my principles, folks. But just remember, this is an asterisk question. You've been training. You need to build your press up because it's lagging. So this is an asterisk. Okay. This is not a universal recommendation. Is that okay?
I understood.
I do this one thing where I do a set of 2, a set of 3, a set of 5, a set of 10, all with 1 weight. And I think I've told you 2, 3, 5, 10, 2, 3. And if you do that 5 times, that's 100 presses. So if you take 2 light kettlebells and press them for a double, press them for 3. So you have to clean it, stand up, vertical or military press. 1, 2. Do it again. 1, 2, 3. Do it again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Do it again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Because the 10 will restrict the load, which is what I want because I want more reps.
Mhm.
If you do that 5 times, and by the way, it goes like this because it really goes fast. Because after the set of 10, you're recovered for that double in seconds.
Mhm.
After the set of 5, there's a bit of a wait. All of a sudden, you just done your press stroke 100 times. You've got that feeling of blood in your shoulders and triceps, and even in extending down all the way to your glutes. And some people tell me their feet hurt after this workout
Mhm.
because they're grabbing the ground so hard with their toes, which is really good. That means I think your technique is really good. If you're doing vertical presses, folks, and your toes hurt, I think that's a good sign.
Mhm.
Your feet hurt from grabbing the ground. That's a good sign. The same with swings. So you would probably, I would love to see that at least one day a week. But if you struggle with the volume, once every 2 weeks. When I do that press thing at home, when I do the high press workout, my hard day is 2, 3, 5, 10, 5 times the 100 presses. The easy day is twice, getting me 40 presses. And the medium day, I used to always say 4, but really it's just 3 clusters now. So I got a workout where I do 100, a workout where I do 40,
Mhm.
and a workout where I do 60.
Mhm.
So the 60 is the medium day, the 40 is the light day, and the 100 would be the big focus day. And I would suggest you do it in something along that order, where your light day follows the heavy day, and obviously the medium day is always going to work perfectly if you do that. And then the third issue is load. Uh, I think a lot of people don't challenge themselves enough, especially in the kettlebell world, Patrick. My goal is to press the 24 kilo. And I look at him like, no offense, but you're an adult male. You have to have a bigger goal than that.
That should be like the floor, right?
I mean,
Not the ceiling.
what did I do the first time I saw the beast? I pressed it for
You pressed
reps.
it and then you took it out for a beer.
Well, beer and dinner and dancing after that,
Right,
too.
of course. Mhm, mhm,
Because the beast said, I have been defeated.
mhm.
Yes. And again, it's not me being, oh, what a cute boy am I. It's me saying that when you have a background of pressing with big loads, you start to appreciate load.
Mhm,
And there is a value in lifting heavy weights. So
mhm.
I like this. So when we begin, okay, so major topic number 1, I think you start with frequency. If you're the asterisk, your press is lagging, you want to fix it. Okay. This is not, gentle listener, this is not advice I give to a beginner. This is not I would give to somebody 10 months of the year. 10 months of the year, I think you should do 15 to 25 presses every workout, 3 days a week, whatever. I mean,
Mhm.
that's kind of where that 15 to 30 presses. That's that sweet spot number. Okay.
Mhm.
In fact, if you want, you can go 2, 3, 5, 10, 2, 3, 5. You're welcome. There you go. So it's frequency. And then we're going to play with volume somehow. I like the idea of having a big volume day and then 2 other less, and then load. Okay, now we're ready for the next part of specific. Any follow-up to anything I just said so far?
No, this is great. This is very clear, actionable, perfect. 2 perfects. Mhm.
I'm making an assumption here, and I hope I'm okay, and I hope I don't lose any of the listeners, because somebody said this week that I was really mean on podcasts, and they were afraid to ask questions,
Hmm.
and I apologize. Now, if it's someone who was on this podcast, when I come off mean, it's always the one guy who said I didn't lift weights. That upset me, and somebody else said one time, Dan doesn't look like he lifts weights, and that pissed me off. And here's the thing.
But believe it or not, gentle listeners, having platforms like Dan and I do, we whether it's visible or not, we often receive slightly irritating remarks from time
Yeah,
to time. Slightly
yeah.
irritating remarks from time
Guy
to
who
time.
a whole bunch of my YouTube podcasts and then just said basically, just inject testosterone, it'll work better. Just inject testosterone, it'll work. And so I had to delete them from my channel and delete all the.
I did a podcast with somebody the other day, and I thought it was a really great podcast, and wasn't even fitness related. And the first response that somebody gave about my guest was, "You're fatter than I thought you were." It's like this is the level of discourse on the internet sometimes. So all
No,
that, yeah.
no, Patrick, it's all the time. It's all the time. This week, someone went to Nancy Pelosi's house and attacked her husband with a hammer. I'm mad because people say I don't lift weights on podcasts. Is this where we've devolved to? Is this where we've devolved to? I mean,
we should shut the internet down for like 2 months and just see like what happens in society. That would be such a great experiment, wouldn't it? Like just shut even just social media. Just shut all social media down for 2 months and then just see like what happens to people's lives in general, especially like mental health. I mean, I can only venture a hypothesis, but I can only imagine things would generally improve, right?
and then if you ever get a chance, go on YouTube and watch the old Siskel and Eberts. And everybody loved the show Siskel and Ebert. And if you're not familiar, because you're such a young person, it was a show where they would review movies. And we always loved it, but because the two of them would get very aggressive in each other's faces about, I love this movie. How can you possibly hate this movie? Jill Claiborne is the greatest actress of our generation. How can you pan it? Well, here's your problem. You like Star Wars. But the thing is, here's a funny thing. Those two guys had each other's backs their entire career. They were from different worlds, but they truly cared and loved and respected each other. And where did that go? Where did the respect go? So sorry about the segue. I can't help myself, but I'm glad you shared that with me, Patrick. All it does is make me want to go, just like Silent Bob and Jay, knock on people's doors and just beat the shit out of
them. All this to say that every content producer should get a pass on the occasional grumpy moment. That's all I'm trying to say. If you're on the side that Dan and I are, and you saw all the nonsense that was constantly coming in, it takes like Dan. People are like, I'm relatively young, but I've been on the internet like producing stuff for like 15 years. So I've been at this for a while, so like I'm sort of used to it. But it took a long time for me to get used to a lot of that stuff. And you've been doing it even longer than I have. You've dealt with nonsense for much longer than I have. Way back.
Say your thing. Leave your address. I'll come by. We'll deal with it like gentlemen.
Right.
Which means basically me smashing your face on a curb for 20 minutes.
Now, let me say also that in the overwhelming majority, the people who follow this show in the live chat, you guys are all amazing. You guys are all awesome. But it's everywhere else.
Just remember, Archbishop Niederauer told me, Dan John is a diva. I only look at negative reviews. I don't look at positive. So, folks, I'm a diva. I am the Barbara Streisand of the fitness industry.
Right.
For those of you who missed the Streisand, that's from Licorice Pizza. So,
okay. So, sir, which I have not seen that. I'm trying to get caught up on some of these cult classics, by the way. My wife never saw the original Terminator until last night, so we fixed that. Holds up it's been many years since I've seen it. I thought that held up surprisingly well, in fact.
I agree with you. Very often those first films in those series are really good. Comparing Jaws to Jaws 2, stunning. Really could have been one of the Jaws. Many consider it one of the best films of the 70s.
Oh, Jaws is phenomenal. Yeah.
If you didn't see it in the theater when it first came out, you wouldn't get it but it is phenomenally scary. And I think Terminator is also an amazing film. And the finish is just did not see that beautiful moment.
Two perfects, to be sure. Okay, so swinging back now. Thank you, everybody, for your gentle patience.
Rake 92. Yeah, isn't he on the list of people I want home addresses for?
Fine. Maybe, Dan. Yeah. Maybe.
I don't know. I keep a list. In fact, it's my 3 attorneys all have it, and And yeah, so and they know that yeah, so they know if I do this or that, they know why.
That's
So
right.
and they also
When the moment finally comes, they'll
tell
know.
me
So
to get me
yeah.
out. Yeah.
So, anyways, back to pressing. Where were we now? Where were we? We were back to load, right? So you said let's play around volume. Let's have one volume day. Now let's kind of talk about load a little bit.
So we got frequency. We've got the multiple days a week. We got volume. Play around with the volume, and then on load. Let's just put that to the side. Whoa, we have a
Special
guest
guest.
on the show.
Marin, this is the one, Dan. Marin, can you go two perfects?
Give me
Can you
two
go
perfect.
two perfects? Say two perfects.
Two perfect.
Two perfects. All right, we got it on camera. Sorry, Dan. Continue. Yeah.
Thank you. And then from there, I do think there are some specific exercises, and I really do think that help. So now we come in. Let's do it. Let's break it down this way. Let's go with equipment, and then let's go with non-equipment. Okay. The first is I do think, and this is I use the bigger, faster, stronger chains because the chains have collars on them. And what I like about that, if you are bench pressing or military pressing, if you military press, I used to have a metal stool that I used, but nowadays most people probably use one of their jump boxes. Those work pretty good. You sit down, way down on it. I suggest you take the weight off stands, squat all the way down, and as you press, the load gets heavier right through there. And for most people, is when you press with chains, because every time the link comes off the floor, it gets heavier. Most people learn the groove from there. Okay, so bench press, military press with chains. However, there's also a thing called the kettlebell, and the kettlebell there's a unique way of lifting the kettlebell that weirdly helps pressing technique. It's called the bottoms up.
That's right. Hold it upside down.
And the only thing about the bottoms up, always protect your face. Always just really be ready. Okay. So I've got the press, I got the weight here, it's in bottoms up. And as I go up, if I don't stay absolutely vertical to the wrist, the forearm has to stay perpendicular to the ground. It has to stay perfectly vertical. I don't have any different ways I can say it, but that's the key. If I go like that, the weight just topples over.
Right.
And also, too, when I do a bottoms up, there's a natural tendency to watch the bell. Now, when you bench press, you watch you watch the barbell because it's right there. Some believe that watching the bell actually helps you improve your press. And the other thing is when you lock out the bottoms up press, most people naturally lock it out and then finish here with the bicep back on the ear. So pressing with chains is appropriate, bottoms up pressing. And now if you have a kettlebell, here's something you can do. I haven't done this in the gym. I'd like to say I've done this in the gym a million times. The truth is, in absolute candor, what I'm about to tell you is a phenomenal exercise. I've probably only done myself a few times and helped maybe 5 people with this. But you add a rope. I also use Dynamax bands on this too. And with the Dynamax band, you have the stretchy, and you put the rope or the Dynamax band and you hook it to a light kettlebell. You hold the weight here, and you want it to kind of engage right about there, right in that weird little. When the elbows go from, we tend to be very strong, like in the bench press, up for about 4 inches. And when the elbows get around parallel is when the weak spot happens. So you want to have the weight come off the floor when your bicep, tricep are kind of parallel to the ground. So you might have it, and it usually takes. It doesn't really take very long, actually. No, it doesn't. Yeah, I was about to say it takes a few minutes to adjust, but strangely, it doesn't. Now, one thing you have to worry about though is you do have a floating bell down there that's hung by a Dynamax band or rope or something like that. So just remember, you have a.
Right.
I mean, I think the worst thing we've ever had, and it is, but if you touch the outside of your right knee, It's that bony area.
Mhm.
And if you bang that with the bell, just that area, that hurts. Because
Ouchies.
your calves cover the sides and your quads cover the sides of the thighs,
Mhm.
but that little area right there that has no meat on it. So that would be the only thing I'd worry about.
Mm.
There are some okay, so chains, the bottoms up press, this little weird, add weight thing. Um, and then it's gonna sound it's so simple to do. If you do standing presses while you pick up one foot. So I'm pressing with my right hand. I pick my right foot up off the ground and I do
Mm.
1 or 2 presses.
Mm.
Put my right foot down, pick up my left foot, do 1 or 2 presses. And what that teaches in 4 reps is how the body is one piece.
Mm. Mhm.
So when I pick up that foot, my right foot has to just grab the ground as hard as it possibly can. My obliques have to light up because it's now the QLs have to make sure that, the QLs are now going with the foot that just came up. The QLs go, wait, stay here. And it teaches you to knit all the way up.
Yes.
Those few exercises right there. Yeah, I mean, I said chains and I said you have to have 2. They're maybe a little equipment heavy, but the bottoms up and the taking 1 foot off, there's no equipment at all. You'll get
Well,
a lot.
what I really like about that is you've given people sort of drills that automatically course correct or adjust the technique, if you will. What you haven't done is spend a lot of time just giving tons of verbal detail of what it should look like. Rather, you said, here are some drills, focus on these, and things will sort of just fall into place. And I think that's brilliant. I think that's the best way to go about like trying to get somebody into the right groove or rhythm is with techniques like that, right? You can tell people things all day long, but all the better if you get them to really feel it, right? Mhm.
Yeah, yeah. A weird other thing too, and just a thought is if someone's a crappy presser, make them in charge of the press. Have them coach up other people. That's just a thing we did back as a
Y-
that's I
I
mean,
mean, that's brilliant in general. I mean, certainly
probably
for
yeah,
anything in my life where I've assumed a sort of coaching or leadership role, where I then had to kind of like critically reflect back on
yeah,
the thing that I'm doing and communicate it to others, always forces me to refine and improve and discover further nuances. So I think that's just like great life advice. If you ever want to just improve at something, get some basic competency at first, but then start trying to teach it and communicate it to others. I'm already having, my kids do that with one another, especially with things like music and stuff that they're learning in school. It's invaluable as far as I'm concerned. Mhm.
one of the things I wish we had kept doing as a coaching, I'm not gonna tell you the school, but we used to, have a little league, coaching clinic for a week,
Mhm.
and it was just a money maker for the coaches, and frankly, I mean, that's what it was. But we'd ask our upcoming seniors, so our seniors to help us, and after a week of working with 8-year-olds, 9-year-olds, they were clearly better football players themselves because they were trying to show somebody something they knew. But and of course, once you show someone something but you can't explain it, and then you explain it, or you tell you tell the same boy you got to protect your head when you're tackling. Well, this all he sees is one kid, throwing his helmet into a bag. No, you can't do that. Well, it's been reinforced. In hindsight, I wish I'd have done that with maybe the upcoming juniors also, just so they get um, 2 or 3 or 4 bouts of working with the young children on that.
Great. But so, gentle listeners, we'll get to Q&A here in a minute. So, post any questions you have. Primarily, I'm pressing. That's the theme of this episode, but general questions are always welcome. All right. So, Dan, remind us of everything, if you don't mind. Are there any other? Well, first off, are there any other points you would add? And then maybe you could give us the summary of everything that's been said
Yeah.
of how to improve your
We
press.
haven't gotten to programming really. I mean, I talked about weekly stuff, but
Yeah, we've given actually a pretty, I think, general
yeah,
general
but
sketch of how to approach it throughout the week. Yeah. Mhm.
yeah, but the thing about pressing is that if you look, I always joke about the best program you'll ever do is the 3 by 52. 3 days a week, 52 weeks a year. I was taught it was 5 by 52, but I'm willing to change with the times. But when you look at pressing, I think you need to just kind of step back and say, you need a 52, 104 week approach to it. I think you nudge your press up. With the Olympic lifts, you can have those bizarre days where everything just suddenly clicks and you're substantially, yeah, I even go on and say in the ballistic world, Patrick, is I think all of a sudden, I can almost guarantee you've either seen it with teaching the swing or teaching the snatch, kettlebell snatch, where you're just like, is Edna ever going to figure this out? And then like
It's always Edna, isn't it? It's always Edna.
and then the next day you kind of look over and they just did the RKC snatch test with the 16K bell for 100, and it's like, what happened? Oh, and then they'll say something that drives me crazy all the time. Oh, I asked Bob about it, and Bob said I need to stab the bell at the top. And I swear to God, I've told her 1,000 times to stab the bell, but Bob said it, stab the bell, or I've been saying stab the bell, and that makes no sense at all.
Right. And Bob was on Reddit, so.
And Bob we are standing in the gym in his suit and tie. And so I think in the grind family, the squats, the deadlifts, the press families, I think that improvement is much more like climbing a mountain. It's more step by step by step. Okay. Whereas in the ballistics, it almost seems to me in a sense that sometimes it's like skiing down the mountain. There's going to be a few falls here and there, but once you get it, you improve so fast.
Coasting. Yeah. Awesome. Okay. So lots of tips there, probably more than 5, but yeah, go ahead, Dan.
So my point is, if you have a press or squat deficit, I would mentally kind of get yourself into the idea that, okay, inch by inch, it's going to be a cinch, just kind of tell yourself, I'm going to practice a lot, and then you'll practice yourself in the grind up to success.
So what I've heard a lot of this, I'll try and give my summary, is frequent practice with a fair amount of variability, and fair amount of variability concerning how much volume you do any particular day, the types of pressing variation you do, and the load you use. So you're pressing a lot often. Some days you're pressing maybe a considerable amount of volume with a moderate load. Maybe another day you're not pressing as much total volume, but you're using a much heavier weight.
You could do that.
And then another day you might just go pretty light and just keep that groove greased. And then you could take that for 3 days a week. You could do it to 5 days a week. Would you say between the 3 to 5 day a week is probably the sweet spot for pressing there, Dan?
If you're struggling with the press, I think you have to have those extra 2 days of something.
Excellent. And by the way, I framed this as around the kettlebell military press, but you really gave us a prescription for pressing across the board, which included the kettlebell military press. And of course, I think the principles are gonna kind of translate generally, right?
Somebody asked a question here, and I just saw it pop up about can you do bench press with kettlebell?
Here we go. This is from Steven. He says, yeah, what are your thoughts on bench pressing with kettlebell?
The only thing I'd say on that, Steven, is I was never a fan of two-hand, so double kettlebell bench press. But I am probably the loudest advocate of single kettlebell, single arm bench press, especially to keep the offhand free. It becomes a thrower, kicker, striker exercise. You can go very deep on it.
You can set it up a lot easier and a lot more safely than trying to get the 2 there, right?
Yeah. So if you're going to do 2, then you have to clean it. You have to sit down. You have to roll back and then bench press. If you have the 1, you just can do that. That cheat
to get the get up set up, right? Yeah.
You can sit down. You can lock yourself in. You can slide the weight down because you got the other hand to pop it up if it's too heavy. So
totally. One thing I like is a little variation on that. And I don't do the double kettlebell bench. It's tool for the job. I'll use a barbell or dumbbells for the standard 2-hand stuff. But I do like a lot that single arm kettlebell, and even throwing in a slight little hip bridge in there as well. That's a variation I like. Yeah. So just squeeze the glutes, drive the hips up, and it turns it into a little bit of a decline single arm press. Ooh.
From the floor.
From the floor, right? Extends the range of motion a bit too, especially since you're against the floor.
Yeah. So my standard for American high school boys is the 32 for 5 on both sides.
Mhm.
For girls, it's the 12 for 10s on both sides. And so that's the single arm bench press. It's interesting because I picked up on this. I moved away from the barbell bench press as a test because what happens with adolescent boys sometimes is if they're bench pressing 200, and it doesn't matter if it's kilos or pounds, when you look at the way they squirm around, it almost looks like they're benching with 180 with their right hand and 20 with their left. So the one arm highlights that imbalance between the two sides.
Yeah, funny story. I don't think there's a point to it, but I was at the gym the other day, and I was dumbbell benching, actually sets of 20. I was going quite high rep because I do like to do higher rep sets every now and then, and it just felt a little bit weird. I'm like, feels like a little bit heavier than usual. I don't know what's going on here. And I put the dumbbells back. Somebody comes up to me. He's like, why are you pressing with 2 different size dumbbells, dude? Like significant difference between the two. So the lesson, and it was funny because I just talked about odd load training that day and some of the benefits. I think we talked about too, and I ended up doing it unintentionally. So I forget what I had, like a 70 in one hand and a 60 in the other or something like that. But sometimes you say mind over matter, but sometimes it's matter over mind too. Like in my mind, I really thought I was pressing some amount of weight, right? But something felt a little bit weird. So like there was clearly no like magical placebo effect where I just pressed heavier weight automatically. So I thought that was interesting. Some guy, it is funny. A guy comes up, he thinks I've got like some secret training thing I'm doing. I'm just being an idiot. Didn't know I picked up two different weights.
The Lane Cannon used to, he would go to garage sales and he would go to he had no matching dumbbells.
Yeah.
He had like 130-pound dumbbell and he had like an 85, and that's how he would bench press because it wasn't just that he was cheap. That's what he had.
Mm-hmm.
And all of us with young kids, we have to make those decisions. And I think it was my second or third T-Nation article where I talk about one dumbbell training.
Yeah.
And I'm still kind of proud of that little article because, it's funny. I told Chris Schugert to use something light like 65 pounds for one of the exercises.
Mm-hmm.
And he emailed me, he goes, it crushed me. He was begging the camera person to take the shot. These things all sound easy until you do them,
Right. Yeah. And by the way, I really do. Everyone talks about the low rep stuff, but I really enjoy occasionally, and maybe it's just one day a week, where I'll just get the 65 or 75-pound dumbbells, which for me is not that heavy of a weight, and just do like sets of 20 on it. And it like that higher rep stuff, I think really, again, has a nice knitting effect. It certainly has a nice hypertrophy effect. People forget that you can get good hypertrophy benefits from like more than 15 reps of things, as long as you're using the right intensity. So I don't know. Sometimes people, I think, get a little too obsessed of like, if you're over 10 reps, you're just doing Zumba type of thing, right? And
on this trip, I've been doing a lot of, original plan was 1 day a week of doing the light workout, and then it became 2, and then it became 3.
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing this personal press challenge, and so I'm doing reps of 100 with just a 10-kilo bell. This is the light workout in the half kneeling press position. Left knee down, left hand, right knee down, right hand.
Nice.
Sets of 20. And every time I stand up after doing that, my legs feel better. And I start walking around and I feel great. And I think that's, there's something about the dosage of, now again, I'm in the half kneeling position. So I'm also trying to stretch out my hips and wake my core up. But damn it if it's not working well, Pat.
Yeah.
Oh, child gun. I'll stop swearing.
But amazing how that can happen sometimes. Here's iChef says something similar. I had a terrible front squat day once, wondering why it was so difficult. Then I saw it was 2 different dumper plates. But my point was, like, so many people are like, oh man, it's just all mental. Clearly it's not. Clearly it's not all mental. Like, physics is real, right? Matter is real. I could not figure out, like, why does this feel heavier than it should today, right? And I really in my mind thought I was just doing my standard thing, right?
My brother shared with me something that the great hammer thrower Koji used, where he put weights. So you have your squat rack or you have your bench. Bench might be a little bit sketchy, but you dangle from either chains or ropes or band weight from the barbell, and you front squat or press with these weights doing this
crazy dance. Yeah.
this grandfather clock, tick tick, and as you go to press, they move around, and you just sit there, and it just feels like you're. And then you add the weight up, and it was a 65-pound press,
Right.
and it felt like it was 365 pounds because, like you just said, physics are real.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So every time you move, the bell goes that way, the bell goes this way.
Mm-hmm.
All this, you're doing this. So I recommend you call those Koji squats, and I still utilize them. It's funny. Some jackass online one time said, "Why don't you talk about Koji squats anymore?" I do all the time. It's just it's a 1% of the 1% kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna do that, early in the season on the 8th year. A guy trying to make the Olympic team.
Mm-hmm.
Do that with somebody who just finished a 3 to 6 month deployment, got back in shape, and just to check in on some qualities, we would do that. It's not every exercise is meant to be done every day.
That's right. Good wisdom. All right, let's take some more questions here. Good stuff today, gentle listeners. I have to take this one just because I always love just taking things that aren't entirely relevant to the topic. Michelle notes that about the first Terminator, it makes so much sense of Sarah Connor's character change in Terminator 2. Linda Hamilton played that part perfectly. I agree. I thought she was awesome. I'm a big fan of just like 80s, like Aliens. Aliens is such a phenomenal movie too. It was really, those are both James Cameron movies, aren't they? I think they are.
So. I think so. And the thing about, I didn't watch the last one. It's like Terminator Ultimatum or something like that.
I think it was a Dark Fate or something like that. I did watch it and it was okay. It was just okay. I wasn't crazy about it, but I also didn't hate it. Mm-hmm.
Terminator 1 ends with Arnold dipping himself to destroy the last brain.
No, that's 2. That's 2.
Oh, but she
remember Terminator 1. Arnold's just the sole baddie, and she crushes him at the end under the big steel.
Oh, and the light goes out. And the light goes out.
Right. Yep. Mm-hmm.
And then she gets that little picture, the Polaroid.
That's right. Yep.
I thought that. And no one cares what I think about movies, but I thought that was a really excellent finish, and it should have. And I get it because as long as you're making money, they're going to do Jaws 3, which was worse. And then by the time they got to Jaws 4, we all just Jaws 3D and then Jaws 4, where Michael Caine falls.
It was a Michael Caine Jaws, right?
He comes out. He comes out of the ocean dry. I mean, they didn't even. It's not like she's not even trying.
Yep.
So your actor is dry when he comes out of the ocean. You're not even trying, folks. You're not trying. But Michael Caine, I think, is still the greatest actor of my life.
Oh, he's phenomenal. Yeah, he's phenomenal.
Yeah, I love what he says when people ask him, "Why do you take these roles?" He goes, "I'm a working actor, and actors act."
And actors act. He's a professional, right?
I'm a pro. In fact, we have a mutual friend whose wife would only take higher and higher jobs. And it sunk our friend's wife's career because sometimes you got to take the Dustin Hoffman Tootsie,
Sometimes you got to do that Hallmark movie. Why not?
Where he refused to take the role because tomatoes don't talk like that or something like that.
Anyways, for people who are wondering, Terminator 1 holds up quite well. The other thing I'll just say is like, dang, the 80s action synth music was so cool. Why did they get rid of that? Like this. Always those kind of dark synth themes.
Oh,
you see, like the Terminator and stuff. It's just the music was better.
I'm sorry, gentle listeners. That's why I respected Rogue One as the only post Empires movie I liked.
I am in full agreement with you. That is the only one that I enjoyed. Solo wasn't awful. I didn't hate that. I hated the other ones, but I liked Rogue One. Mm-hmm.
Rogue One because it actually. It added to the first one when the guy the admiral says we paid a high price for this. We see how high the price was, and at the end of that movie, I went, I can't wait to watch Star Wars again because now I know what the high price was, and it was an extraordinarily high price. So Sometimes the sequel can do that, but most of the time, sequels have 3-dimensional sharks that don't. Yeah, that aren't
That's
very
right.
good.
That's right. All right, back to the topic
Yeah.
then.
Yeah,
Here's one also from iChef. How about avoiding injury or overuse on high rep pressing programs such as the rite of passage? Would you balance it out with other stuff? Any thoughts on
Well, you
this,
do.
Dan?
That's in
Mhm.
the rite of passage, Mr. Chef the Impossible. The way I did it, at least the way I was told to do it, is that I guess it was optional, but to me it made no sense. But so you clean and press once, you clean and press once, you do 1 pull-up. You clean and press twice, you clean and press twice, you do 2 pull-ups. And I think I've mentioned many times on this podcast that when I got 75 clean and press left, 75 clean and press right, all to 28 and 75 pull-ups, I finished that workout and I was shocked how good this shoulder girdle felt. And I would put it right up there, my young friend, with this half kneeling press. I'm not sure, Patrick, why hangs and vertical presses make everything feel so good. Check man Joni-san. Sorry, I'll move on. But there's something marvelous about the vertical press family that make me feel good. Monsters Ball, I think it's called. Make me feel good. Okay, sorry. Movie quotes. So, this half kneeling thing I do makes my hips and core feel great. All those pull-ups and presses made my shoulders feel great. I have a friend who's going through some real rough times with his shoulder, and man, I got to tell you, I thought hips were bad to have, but bad shoulders might be worse. Because it impacts every single thing you do in your life. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, injuries in general. I mean, it just reminds you how everything is connected and everything matters, right?
Boy, yeah. If you want a good case of constipation, hurt your lower back. Yeah. I'm not recommending that. Okay. But go ahead.
Not serious.
So let's answer a few more questions here. Okay?
All right. JF wants to know, is there such a thing as a beginner full body complex with double kettlebells? Coming from a traditional barbell background, I like the idea of symmetry from using 2 bells. Or should I drop all and start at 2? Or should I drop all and start at 2-hand swing? So I'm doing some on the fly translation of this comment, but I did the best I could.
Yeah. So JF, I don't like this. You're coming in with an either or on this, but the double kettlebell press and the double kettle front squat, those are, those 2 exercises, you almost have a perfect program. I hate that phrase, but the double family, if you were to do double kettlebell front squat, double kettlebell press, double kettlebell swings, you could, even as a beginner with kettlebells, you're going to learn a lot. The double kettlebell swing is kind of my go-to at certs and in hands-on training when someone's struggling with the techniques, because you better figure out how to lock and load at the top. You better figure out how and to let the, I don't know, whatever you want to call that, where you have to let the hips unlock for everything to come back, whatever.
Yeah.
When you attack the zipper, you have to, I don't even have to teach anything. You have to figure it out your own. So you could certainly go into doubles. There is great value in the single stuff, though, just for I think the single hand clean and press, and you do both sides, it's almost like a one-stop assessment for any issues you have. You'll see. Yeah.
2 perfects. All right, let's see if we can squeeze in one more. Here's another pop culture question, Dan. And questions like this do make me think, Dan, is there a point where we just have to recognize that some art form has reached its climax and it's better to burn out rather than fade away? I mean, we had Beethoven's Fifth, we had, Starry Night, and then we had RoboCop in the 80s, yet people are still making films as if RoboCop never happened. Brendan seems to think that maybe Escape from New York was where it all should have ended. What do you think, Dan? Are you a fan of Seems like we got a lot of 80s movie fans in here, right?
The thing I liked about Escape from New York was Adrienne Barbeau, I think her name was. Holy cow. Woo! Yeah. Okay, I need
It's
to.
been a while since I've seen that.
Yeah,
Since I've seen that one. But Kurt Russell, obviously, right?
yeah.
Snake.
It
Uh,
wasn't. It
um,
wasn't a movie for me, but it doesn't mean it's bad. It just, sometimes you see a movie and it just doesn't fit. I
what
was just
about
talking.
Big Trouble Little China, Dan? You ever see that one?
No, but I was having a delightful conversation with a very close friend of mine about the movie that changed my life, American Graffiti.
Mm.
And American Graffiti is the reason I went away to college and not Stanford. And it's funny because for me, and not long after that, Star Wars came out, and it made me go. And my friend Crazy Jerry and I would have hours of conversation discussing the Force, the Holy Spirit. Are there things? Are there guides in the universe that we just miss? And then Animal House came out, and it touched my soul because it spoke
Right.
to me as a human person.
Oh man, Hollywood is really quite a
You're welcome,
circus.
JP. Absolutely.
What
Yeah.
here? Let me finish with a question for you. Here we go, Dan. What's the best movie you saw this like past year? Because there's a lot of recent movies I think are total garbage, but there are a few that I think I've really enjoyed. I'd like to hear in the past year, has there been one movie in particular that that surprised you that you really liked?
Okay, so in the past year, there's been a few movies I didn't expect. Uh, um, okay, I thought like The Green Knight. I really liked that Hercule Poirot show about the Nile, Death on the Nile. I thought that was really good. Um, I've already mentioned the one, and I'm gonna come right back to it in just a minute. Um, the show about the Minions, kind of where Groot. This summer, the show about Groot came out as a child,
Mm.
and I thought that was an amazingly fun little show. And I got to tell you this, and I'm embarrassed to say it, but the Sandra Bullock show called Big Island made me laugh a lot too. I got to be careful because these. It wasn't just the movie; it was the whole evening. Um, but I'll be honest, I wasn't prepared for Licorice Pizza. I I would put Licorice Pizza in that little area of coming of age movies like American Graffiti. There's some others that are just not coming. There's a Little Woman version with I think it's Winona, not the girl from the Addams Family, not Winona Ryder. That's not right. But the little girl. It's a very good version of Little Women. These coming of age movies that sometimes in Licorice Pizza, the boy it's Seymour Hoffman's son, but it's just a good movie.
Hmm.
It's a good movie. I don't know if I'd watch it 100 times like I did Star Wars or even American Graffiti, but it's just a good movie. You cross your arms at the end and go. Goonies is another one in that where you have a group of friends, a movie where the people like each other. The bad people aren't terribly bad. They're just, I thought it was very good. A very good
Of course, The Goonies, of course, yeah, such a phenomenal film,
Yeah.
right?
Oh,
Mhm.
Wednesday Adams, the person said, did I get that right? Oh my God. Okay. Wayne Turner gets to stay on this, that we're not going to kick him off. Last Starfighter is one of the most underrated films in the history of movies. And someone said to me that I showed it to me, goes, well, the special effects aren't very good. And I go, how did you even notice the special effects? Because the movie is so good.
So I just saw a movie for the first time that I didn't even know existed. It popped up on like some Facebook group. Then I watched it. Flight of the Navigator. Have you seen this? It was like an 80s Disney movie. And it's kind of got a little bit of a Race to Witch Mountain kind of feel. I actually really liked it. It totally was not what I was expecting, first off.
Yes, it was, and it's back when Disney was floundering, terrible movie after terrible movie. I think it was Beauty and the Beast that saved Disney. I think so. I could be wrong.
Really. I don't know. Uh-huh.
Aladdin, Beauty and the Beast. It was like a 3-year period where all of a sudden they became significant again. But I think I know the movie you're talking about. It's a very strange looking piece of equipment they get around in, right?
That's yeah, to say the least, right? Yeah. But yeah, it was like one of those movies where at the end I was like, you know what, that's a solid, if I'm Rotten Tomatoes, 82%, right? It was like good. It's good, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, so people can go take those movie recommendations and have yourself a fun Friday, AD. But Dan, before we go, give us the updates. I know you're taking off across the country like as soon as we finish here, right? So yeah, what's the scoop? What's coming up for you?
So I'm doing some basic little bit of packing today. I'm gonna say goodbye to Paul and Beth and Casey today. Lonnie will come over tonight. We'll just kind of hang out for a little bit and maybe talk some football. They just they just got they had after a great start in their season, they just had that injury plague hit them. And the problem with small school football is you don't have any depth. So when you lose that kid, you got a freshman, you got a boy who talks like this, and it's just brutal.
Mm-hmm.
But he's good. He's well set for next year. I'll be doing some presses here in just a few minutes. I'll probably head over to the pond, get my last dip in the
Little dippy dip. Mm-hmm.
It has been, and I will say this, I don't know how much I've told you about this trip, about some of the bizarre things that happen on this trip. But I'm just going to tell you this one thing. And folks, I don't even believe what I'm about to tell you. Honestly, I don't.
Mm-hmm.
I don't. Sitting at a bar, Aurora, Colorado, first night on the road. Guy sits next down to me, starts talking, and he just kind of, I won't tell you everything, but he goes, "It's like your father's on your left shoulder." He says this. Well, right after that, we start driving again, even farther east. The hurricane hits, so I can't go to Florida. So I make a left turn to go visit Rosenberg. And
no coincidences, Dan. No coincidences.
Right. The next thing you know, I'm in Island Pond, Vermont, on the street that my grandmother died, my dad died, my grandparents are buried, my great-grandparents are buried. My niece lives off the street. It's where Lonnie grew up. And there are no coincidences. I got to tell you, I am so glad I had a chance to spend so much time here with my family members and the deep dive I've made into who I am on my father's side. And that's been delightful. I've been doing presses and glute loops and walking and swimming, and I feel great. I've been eating really on target. And I feel like my head space has been cleansed. And the nicest thing I think is that you and I have been able to link back up, every single week without really.
No hiccups, amazingly.
Yeah. So, and this has been a joy. My business is going really well. We're still kind of, that stumbling process when a book is coming out.
I do.
Yeah. Still working on thank you, Wayne. Easy Strength Omnibook is still working out. I have some big goals I will share. There's been some sadness in Dan John world in the last few years, but I feel like in the next month, I'm going to do some things at my home and in my personal life. I've done some things in the last few months, especially in my personal life. I would say that on my relationship side, I am very happy, which is very good. I would say that on the physical side, I'm doing really well. I was at a lake the other day with a man who's my age, and let's just say I chose wisely. So things are good. Looking forward to seeing my grandkids again. Looking forward to seeing my daughters, and looking forward to, it's the Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's coming right up, faster, Adventus, coming right up. And I'm sitting back here with a cleansed palate, and I feel good about things, Pat. And
that's just fantastic, Dan. It is, yes.
And if you don't mind me adding, seeing Marin today was just a delight. And I don't know if that was planned, but
no, make sure she hunts Dad down when he's upstairs walking. So yeah.
So
by the way, I did get a different clip of her doing Too Perfect. She's a little shy around you, Dan. She probably heard that you're a legendary strength coach, because normally she's quite talkative. So I'm going to upload that clip, and then whenever we have something that deserves Too Perfects, we'll be able to bring that clip in. Give it Too Perfect.
Hey, I love it. And gentle listeners, thanks for everything. It's always an honor. I thought today's theme of presses was very good. And it was nice that it was kind of fun. I thought today that we got into that time on the movies, Pat.
I love it. You know, what we do here, Dan, is we have a conversation. Of course, we always try to deliver as much useful material as we can, but dang it, we like to have fun as well. And I can see we've got a lot of fellow movie fans. Dan and I are happy to talk about this all day. We could make it the whole conversation. So sometimes you guys might have to rein us back in, but thank you as always, Dan, for all the insight that you bring. Thank you, listeners, for your support. Please give the podcast 2 Perfects wherever you're subscribed, and we'll see you guys next week. Adios.
2 Perfects.